Betrayal in marriage. Choose to forgive or seek revenge. Subscribe to our channel for more inside stories. I watched my wife, Olivia, to whom I had been married for 3 years, in the arms of a high society snob named, believe it or not, Reginald, whom she dated before she married me. I've done a couple of smart things in the past. Now I needed to do something smart too. However, since I didn't have a camera, my cell phone was being repaired. I only watched as the hug turned into cheating. Olivia and I were supposed to be at her dad's house for dinner in less than an hour, and I knew that by the time I come her out, his photo shoot would be over. However, since Martin's car was blocking Olivia, I could cause them a little trouble and get a little revenge while still being smart wearing gloves. For all my related endeavors, I quickly unscrewed the valves on 3 of his tires, deflated them and then revalved them. I took a rubber hammer from the garage and waited behind a bush. Martin hurried out of the house. A few minutes later, as he swore and knelt by his right F-to-mount tire, I sneaked up and hit with a rubber mallet. I didn't hit him hard enough to kill him, but hard enough to incapacitate him. I took the car keys out of Martin's pocket and threw them as far as possible into the bushes next to our house. Since I was a center fielder in high school and 2 years in college, the keys flew far enough away that they would never be found. I took the credit card's driver's license and cash out of his wallet. Who would have thought that a rich snob would carry no more than 28 in cash? I then wiped a small amount of hair, skin and blood off the hammer with a rag soaked in bleach. Returned the hammer to the garage and placed the rag in a plastic bag. Credit cards and driver's licenses joined the rag in the bag. With the plastic bag in my hand, I ran to my car, which was parked several hundred meters away, so Reginald couldn't see it, and drove at high speed to my father-in-law's expensive old house. One of the few working pay ones left in America was at the 7-Eleven. On the way to me, I parked at a nearby store, took off my jacket, put on a nondescript baseball cap, a sweatshirt and mirrored sunglasses, then headed to the phone. I gave the teenage girl leaving Martin's $28 to call 911 and anonymously report him and lying in the driveway of 15 Ridgeway Terrace. I threw the plastic bag containing the rag credit cards and driver's license into the dumpster at the 7-Eleven. Then I drove them over to Dear Daddy's house, arriving 10 minutes ahead of schedule. As you can already tell, I didn't really like Daddy Dearest. He liked me sort of, but only because I was the best employee at the big insurance company he owned. That is, he liked the money I earned him. Daddy Dearest, his name is Richard Grimes, was, and still is, a rich, pompous ass who always thought Olivia was too pretty to marry a middle-class guy like yours. Truly, Michael Bristol. In fact, based on morals rather than money, I was too good for Olivia and Richard. Richard valued efficiency. So I called Olivia on Richard's landline to find out why she wasn't home at the scheduled time. She was exhausted and scared when she answered the phone. Hello, Olivia. Where are you? Your dad is a little angry. Oh well, sorry. I'm late. Well, there was a crime at the mount of our house and the police are here. Yes, officer. This is my husband, Michael. No, you don't need to talk to him. Do you? I heard some arguing in the background, and apparently Olivia had a hand over the phone. I heard the phone changing hands. Then this is Benjamin Burns. Is this Michael Bristol? Yes, officer. What happened is my wife. Okay. Yes, Mr. Bristol. She's physically fine. However, a man named Martin Swifton was attacked in your driveway and was taken away in an ambulance with his car just now being towed away. What the hell was Martin Swifton doing in my house? I shouted in indignation, loud enough for the always correct Richard Grimes to hear. Your wife didn't really explain this to us. Perhaps you have some information about this. What the hell, he's her ex-boyfriend. Maybe he was just stopping by for a quickie. How the hell should I know? I hope they get the crap kicked out of him from this. No need to be vulgar, Mr. Bristol. So you don't know anything about why he might have been in your house or who attacked him? No, but when you find this guy, tell him I'd like to buy him a beer. Can you take my wife to the hospital and take a swab to prove they had sex? Not unless she wants to go. Burns replied, what if it was rape, and she's too afraid to tell you? Can't you force her to take the test under these circumstances? I asked feverishly. Unless she says she was sexually assaulted. I'm sorry, but I can't. Burns replied. Could you at least take detailed photographs of her to show whether she was attacked? For example, are there any bruises or bleeding? I begged. Yes, we can do that. Burns replied, thank you. Could you please put a potential crime victim back on the phone? Benjamin Burns. Yes, although I would like to talk to you a little more tomorrow. By then, my cell phone will be returned to me. Call me then to make an appointment and I will come to you. I told him and then gave him my cell phone number. Hi Michael. Honey. Olivia began to say, stop talking. Nonsense. Olivia. I want you to go to the hospital immediately. Have Benjamin Burns take you and have a swab taken to see if Martin raped you. No, where did you get this idea? Michael. Well, then, go and prove to me that you didn't have sex with him. How can you accuse me of treason at such a moment? Olivia cried. What time is it so the bastard got attacked? I don't give a damn about him. And you shouldn't either. I shouted. Then paused. Paused for emphasis before continuing. Let's do this. Honey, either you get swapped in the police or witness it before you clean yourself up. Or I file for divorce you. She screamed. But before she could say anything else, I hung up. Richard was deathly pale and angry. What was it? He roared. Well, Chad. I replied. He hated being called Chad. Your daughter cheated on me with that. Martin swift on. So I'm divorcing her. When Richard recovered from the shock, he muttered, you can't talk to me like that or talk about my daughter like that. I have to fire you. The phone rang. I knew it was Olivia. So I just picked it up and then threw it back. Could you put this in writing? I asked excitedly, taking a pen and notepad from the kitchen table and handing it to him. Even if it breaks my heart, if I don't make any more money for a pompous man like you, I'll somehow survive being fired. Richard faltered a bit, including muttering something about how shamelessly ungrateful I was it would be to get rid of me. As he wrote, Michael Bristol fired as if to date aided and signed with his name. Thank you, I said, and then walked out the door clutching my pink paper to my chest as my ringing phone provided the background music. Okay. I know you're a little confused by my actions and think I might be crazy. Perhaps a little more information will help clear things up. The two smart things I referred to at the beginning were the terms of the prenuptial agreement Olivia and I had the employment contract with Richard's company signed at the same time as the prenuptial agreement. I got to Olivia and Richard to agree to add one clause to each of these contracts. I entered into a marriage contract on a mutual basis. That is, if either of us physically harms the other or has sex with anyone else during the marriage, then the sanctions specified in the marriage contract will come into play. In my case, I would receive 50 points euro from her trust fund. Before we split our remaining assets 50 of 50. In her case, she would receive 85 of the assets. If there were children, fortunately, we didn't have any. The injured party would have it with cost. I have never given to an anger and I have never cheated on her, despite all the opportunities to do so. With respect to my employment contract, if I was fired or demoted in a manner that reduced my earnings or responsibilities by 10 or more, the non-competitive provisions of my employment contract were void. I was not in the best position to divorce Olivia for infidelity and get what was due under the prenuptial agreement because I did not have photographs or records that would constitute definitive proof. However, I suspected her for a year and collected a significant amount of admissible evidence. That is, I really had indirect evidence of her betrayal long before the incident with Martin. My friend and middle-class lawyer Tom Botts told me that the circumstantial evidence gave me a good chance, if we found the right judge, and that we could probably gather some more useful information during the investigation. Tom also advised me on what to do regarding my imminent divorce. I have been advised to avoid closing accounts, transferring money or securities, canceling credit cards, etc., until we get a court order to maintain records and freeze assets. To act rashly would look bad in the eyes of the judge and would be detrimental to our case. As soon as I left Richard with steam pouring out of my ears, I bought a burner cell phone and called Tom's office. Why are you still there at 7 p.m. on Friday? I asked, serving helpless like you. He laughed. In response, what's happened? I explained the situation to him, but only from the moment I got to Richard's house. Tom had simple advice: don't come home tonight. Go to the hotel, get receipts, and be seen on their CCTV cameras. Tomorrow morning, a police officer with a video camera will escort you back home and leave the recording device there. In the meantime, I'll check on Martin. I will begin divorce proceedings on Monday. I did as I was told the next morning. Saturday, the policeman and I went to my house where Martin had sex. I entered the side door and then into the living room. I made a fuss and shouted, "Olivia, I'm here to pick up some things and then leave." Olivia quickly went down the stairs. "Why the hell do you start accusing me of cheating and forcing my father to fire you ass? Did you take a vaginal smear?" I asked sarcastically. "Hell, no," she started screaming before I cut her off. "Then we have nothing to talk about. I'll take my clothes and leave." She was so focused on telling me off that I'm sure Olivia didn't see it. But he did get good photos and videos of her face and exposed skin that showed no cuts or bruises. I closed and locked the bedroom door and, ignoring her knocking and screams, packed my clothes and valuables into the suitcases. I checked the sheets for stains, but she was smart enough to change them. She'd probably burned them or soaked them in bleach. After gathering my things, I walked past her without saying a word and out the effing outdoor. I filmed her with my telephoto lens from the car as she screamed on the porch outside. As I left while Olivia and I were upstairs, he installed a long battery recorder in the kitchen. "How did the photos and videos turn out?" I asked when we drove away. Fine. It's easy to see that there were no marks on her." Placing a voice-activated voice recorder turned out to be a brilliant solution. Later that day, we overheard her talking to one of her friends, LLA Castle. Olivia forced LLA to hit her in the face and arms and caused small cuts to her arms and neck. After Lila did what Olivia asked, they both went to the clinic to document the cuts and bruises and take pictures. While Olivia and LLA were at the clinic, the private investigator and I returned to my house to pick up all the other things I needed to pick up the recorder. Tom called it perfect. On Monday, we filed a lawsuit for adultery. By the end of the week, Olivia had filed a counterclaim for physical IC abuse around the time Olivia was filing for divorce. On Monday, after I had cleaned out my office and picked up my cell phone from the repair shop, I went to see Benjamin Burns. "Where were you when the Martin Swift-on thing happened, Mr. Bristol?" This was his first question after exchanging pleasantries. "It sounds like you're treating me like a suspect," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. "Well, we do have evidence linking you to the scene," he continued. "Well then, you should arrest me because I'm done talking to you. I want to invite my lawyer," I said decisively. Of course, I knew he didn't have any proof. "Is this really how you want to play it out? You will look guilty," Burns continued. "I thought that when I asked for a lawyer, you wouldn't be able to ask me another question. But you just did. Either arrest me or I'm leaving." I said. I stood up and headed towards the door. "We're not done yet," Burns continued without any boasting. "Only with my lawyer," I said, handing him one of Tom's business cards and leaving. I never heard from him again, and neither did Tom. I do wish that at the time the suit and counterclaim were filed, I had been aware of Tom's conversation with another private investigator, Daniel Drake, who was also a friend of Tom's. My anxiety would have been greatly eased and I would have understood Tom's unshakable confidence in our cause. The conversation between Tom and Daniel took place 2 days after the counterclaim was filed. Tom only told me about this after the trial. "Daniel, I don't want you to tell me anything of substance that you know, but I need answers to a couple of questions." "Damn it, Tom, if I can help, I will," Daniel replied. "Daniel, does the name Olivia Bristol mean anything to you?" "Yes, it is." "Do you have any clients for whom you work that are interested in Olivia Bristol's activities?" "Yes, they were." "Tom, can you tell me their names? I'll contact them and call you back, Tom." Daniel called Tom a few hours later. "Their names are Elizabeth Moore and Emily Watkins. And don't tell me anything else." "Daniel, would any clients want you to oversee a divorce case in which Olivia Bristol is a party?" "Okay." "Tom, yes. I'm sure at least one of them will. I'll tell you the date." "Daniel, thank you," Tom finished. While this conversation was happening, I was apparently interviewing with Richard's biggest competitor, who hired me at the same salary that Richard's company was paying me, and with a commission almost twice as much. Since there was no way for me not to compete with Richard's company, I contacted all of my old clients within a week, and within a month almost 90 of them had transferred their business to my new company. I could afford to pay Tom's and the private investigator's bills. Additionally, between the start of the divorce process and the trial date, more than 80 of the time I beat Richard's company for new business. When we met face to face, Tom filed for an asset-free while he fed for divorce. This was satisfying. Neither Olivia nor I could touch our money, except for attorney's fees and other court costs. An award granted by the court or as a result of a special request that the other party either agreed to or ordered by the court. There were no cash-outs, cancellations of credit cards, transfers of money from joint accounts to individual accounts, sales of shares, cancellation of insurance policies, or rating of safe deposit boxes. I thought the appointment of the judge was unfortunate, but Tom assured me that it would be good for us in the long run. Judge Matt Moore presided. He was the newest and youngest judge on the family court. He was very energetic, confident, and handsome, with a suspicious prejudice against us. I met Matt Moore just once at a 4th of July party at his next-door neighbor's house, about a month before he was confirmed as a judge. I remember because Olivia and I had a fight that night because she got drunk and disappeared from me. Moore spoke very highly of my father-in-law, Richard Grimes, in a brief conversation Moore and I had that evening. I asked Tom, why did we forgo a jury trial if you suspect that because of his relationship with Richard Grimes, Moore is prejudiced against us? Tom just smiled. Who is the lawyer here? You or me? I know what I'm doing. I want to get for you more than what is provided for in the marriage contract. He answered very confidently. Tom explained the pretrial procedure to me. During the investigation, we would have to reveal what we knew as evidence. The only exception was that if something would be used only for impeachment, that is, to call into question the credibility of a witness or a party, then we did not have to disclose the evidence or any witness who would present it. Tom did not tell me about his conversation with Daniel Drake, and in fact, he did not have any discoverable information based on that conversation, which is why it was not disclosed to Olivia's lawyer, Amanda McAfee. Earlier, when we answered Olivia's attorney's questions under oath, it was not surprising that Sophia Castle was brought forward as a witness to my alleged attack on Olivia. It was alleged that the attack happened on the Saturday after the incident with Reg, when the private investigator, Mike, came to my house to pick up my things. Tom immediately noticed Layla's testimony before we had to respond to Olivia's inquiries about the attack. Lila's videotaped testimony, which Olivia and I both attended, although we never spoke to each other, took place on Monday, after Tom pointed out the date of the alleged attack to LLA he struck. So, Miss Castle, you are absolutely certain that you witnessed the attack shortly before. You accompanied Mrs. Bristol to the clinic CL for treatment that Saturday. Correct. Yes, I'm sure she said, trying to look confident. But she couldn't. You didn't injure Mrs. Bristol yourself, did you? Tom continued. LL and Olivia's jaws dropped and Amanda McAfee looked puzzled. Of course not. LL answered hesitantly. I'm going to play for you an audio recording that an independent witness swears was recorded on that Saturday after Mr. Bristol left his home. Tell me, do you recognize these voices? When Tom played the tape, everyone on the other side of the table turned ashen gray. When this was done, Tom asked, do you recognize the voices? Aren't you and Mrs. Bristol talking about giving her a bruise and then lying about how Mr. Bristol did it? You must have set this up. LLASOWEK. Had a voice expert. Compare your voice in today's testimony with what's on the tape, and then we'll send the case to the prosecutor's office for perjury charges. These are all the questions I have. Not surprisingly, Olivia's lawyer had no objection. 2 days after Leia's testimony, Amanda McAfee decided to withdraw the counterclaim and asked the court to enter a consultation order to stay the case for 2 months until the parties seek the services of a certified conciliation mediator. Tom Street Tom GLY opposed this proposal. During oral arguments, he said, Your Honor, They filed the counterclaim in bad faith, and we want to be able to put that on the record at trial because it undermines Mrs. Bristol's credibility. Moreover, my client has no interest in reconciliation until the case is closed. He loses interest on the 50,000 he intends to recover from Mrs. Bristol. In a show of bias, Judge Moore granted Olivia's motion but threw us a bone. If reconciliation fails and Mr. Bristol prevails in court, then Mrs. Bristol will pay 2 months' interest at the rate of 4% on any money to which Mr. Bristol is entitled in addition to the assets. Tom warned me to follow the instructions in the order during the conciliation process so as not to give the court any reason to sanction me. He told me not to swear, no matter how much I wanted to. Is the word a curse word? I asked him. No. But don't use it. Call her a blatantly unfaithful wife. Tom replied with a smile. Not surprisingly, 2 days before my scheduled counseling session, I received an email from Richard Grimes. I refused to answer his phone calls or even listen to his messages. The letter was very conciliatory and offered me a return to my old job with double my salary and commission. I saved it in case Tom could use it as evidence, but I never responded to it. Lawyers were not allowed to attend the consultation. Only the parties. Olivia arrived for a counseling session rest to kill. She's a sexy, sensual woman and her wardrobe, makeup and hair were impeccable. If I didn't hate her, I would gladly engage in her pleasure. Since the order said nothing about clothing, I showed up in cut-off jeans, sandals and an old college t-shirt with holes in it. Olivia hated the shirt and tried to throw it away twice plus. I hadn't shaved in 2 days and my hair was disheveled and unwashed. Olivia took one look at me and knew it was over, but she tried anyway. No doubt motivated by only 50,000, Mr. Bristol. I'm surprised by your appearance, said the consultant. The order didn't say anything about clothing, and that's how I decided to show up. I'm sorry if this doesn't meet with your approval, I replied, trying to avoid a sarcastic tone but probably failing. The mediator then resumed the session while Olivia and I remained silent. Even though I was the applicant, she allowed Olivia to speak first. Can't I, as the plaintiff, speak first? I asked. As a mediator, I can determine the order of the discussion, he retorted, obviously still disturbed by my appearance. Olivia was a great actress. She told me how much she loved me and wondered why I was suspicious of her. She talked about all the wonderful times we had together and cried where it was appropriate for dramatic effect. This took a good half hour. Either the mediator was moved by Olivia's performance or he was trying to settle the matter, because as soon as Olivia finished, she turned to me with misty eyes and said, Mr. Bristol, what would you like to say to your dear wife who has just read her soul? She's not such a good wife. She's a serial cheater and has been grossly unfaithful to me, as well as a liar. As her story of me beating her clearly shows, her entire performance was an act in an attempt to save 50,000. I don't know if she ever loved me, but I don't care. I don't love her. In fact, I hate her and I want to get a divorce as quickly as possible so I can move on with my life. The mediator and Olivia were shocked. During the remainder of the session, I briefly answered questions or responded to statements from both the counsel and Olivia. The only response of more than 4 words I gave for the rest of the session was when a tearful Olivia said, You didn't even give me a chance to explain why Martin was there before you freaked out. Then I told you in no uncertain terms to take a swab, to prove you didn't have sex with him or to accuse him of rape, and that if you didn't, I would divorce you. It was your choice. Live with. It was not received very well, as a last desperate gesture. The mediator said, Mr. Bristol, I want you to stand up. Go to Olivia and hug her to see if this awakens any feelings in you. I quickly replied I didn't see any requirement in the order that I had to hug her, and the thought of even touching my flagrantly unfaithful future ex-wife gives me goosebumps. Since I don't want to lose my breakfast, I declined. Olivia jumped out of her chair, started swearing at me as loudly as she could and probably would have hit me if the mediator hadn't intervened. While the mediator was trying to calm Olivia down, the big smile on my face probably wasn't helping the situation. The mediator said, You can go, Mr. Bristol. The mediator informed the court that there was no hope of reconciliation, so the court lifted the moratorium and the proceedings continued. During the hearing, Olivia's lawyer took a statement from me. I answered all her questions truthfully. Except they were, did you ever actually witness Mrs. Bristol having sex with another man before filing for divorce? And did you ever see Martin Swift on in your home while you were married and before filing for divorce? Basically, I'm honest, but not stupid. After several months of pre-trial proceedings, during which Judge Moore demonstrated his bias whenever possible while still defending the record for appeal, the trial was scheduled for 2 months after the trial was adjourned. Tom didn't testify to Olivia for strategic reasons, he told me. However, yet Olivia's answer during interrogations where she swore that she had never had sex with another man during the marriage and before filing for divorce. During the trial, we presented our circumstantial evidence of adultery by 3 on the first day because we had sufficient evidence to deny the motion for directed verdict. Despite how biased Moore was, he knew his decision would be overturned on appeal if he granted it. Now it is the deafened Daniel T's turn to present her side of the story. Of course, Olivia's main witness was Olivia herself. Under oath, Olivia denied ever having sex with another man while she was married. Judge Moore looked a little embarrassed at one point, but for the most part he ate out of her hand and overruled almost all of Tom's objections. When she finished, it was almost 500, so Judge Moore ordered the hearing to continue at 9. The next morning, as we were gathering up our papers to leave, a guy walked up to Tom with a big smile on his face. When Tom saw him, he smiled back. I saw this guy sitting in the courtroom during Olivia's testimony, but I didn't know who he was. Michael, this is Daniel Drake. My friend Tom said I shook Drake's hand with a puzzled expression on my face. I have some information for you. Tom Drake said, his smile growing even wider. This is due to the reputation of Olivia Bristol's testimony. Let's go to my office and order dinner. Tom chuckled as the 3 of us walked out in Tom's office. Drake showed us one DVD of Olivia naked, satisfying James Watkins. Drake said he had another DVD, but Tom stopped him from showing it to us. I just want you to testify about the release date of your second DVD. If this is what I think, but I don't know for sure. I don't want to see it now, and I'm sure it will never be shown in court. At precisely 9, the next morning, Tom began his interrogation of Olivia after asking her about Martin's visit on the day I witnessed them having sex. He asked, "Do you know a man named James Watkins?" "Yes," she answered hesitantly. "And his wife Emily Watkins?" "Yes." "When did you first meet him?" "I do not remember exactly." "Wasn't it at a party at your father's house 18 months ago when he came there with his wife Emily? Maybe didn't he move to town and start working for your father a month before?" "I guess so. Well, was it like that?" "Well, wasn't it? Should we call him or Mrs. Jim I.E. Watkins to testify?" Tom growled his pleasant demeanor, suddenly disappearing. After an awkward pause, Olivia stammered and said yes. "Now I remember, it was at that party, about 1.5 years ago, that I first met him." "So you never met him before you got married, did you?" "No," Olivia answered hesitantly. "Mrs. Bristol, have you ever had sex with Mr. James Watkins?" "No, you keep accusing me of cheating." Olivia whined and then burst into tears. "Your Honor, you in the countryside. At this time I would like to play the DVD. Due to its nature, I request that it only be displayed on the monitors at the lawyer tables in the dock and in the witness box and not on the main courtroom monitor." "Very good, Mr. Botsbath. Please push the right buttons to make this happen," Judge Moore said after a pause and a nod from the bully FF. Tom pressed play on the DVD player. Olivia screamed and then covered her mouth when she saw what appeared on the screen. "Is this video of you and Mr. Watkins having sex, Mrs. Bristol?" Tom asked after he had played about 60 seconds. No. It's a fake copy. Turn it off." Olivia sobbed. "There are no further questions, Your Honor. If the deafened Daniel T has no questions, I would like to call Daniel Drake to testify." "No questions," Amanda McAfee said, wincing as Olivia left the witness stand in tears. "However, I have an objection. This video was never provided to us during the investigation and should not be used for any purpose. Actually, Your Honor, I only found out about this around 7 last night. But that doesn't matter. The DVD and the testimony of Mr. Daniel Drake, who will attest to its authenticity, are being used only to refute Mrs. Bristol's testimony and not for any other purpose. Judge Moore was uncomfortable, but he had no choice. The objection is rejected. With proper authentication, I will allow the DVD be used for rebuttal purposes only. Daniel Drake was a confident and unflappable witness. After Tom made everyone aware of his qualifications, he confirmed the authenticity of the DVD, explaining that he filmed a video at the home of Mr. and Mrs. Watkins with the permission of his client, Mrs. Emily Watkins. It showed James Watkins and Olivia Bristol having sex while she was married to Michael Bristol, and before the divorce papers were filed. Judge Moore now looked extremely confused, especially when Tom asked Drake, "Do you have another video of Mrs. Bristol having sex with another married man while she was married to Mr. Bristol?" Yes, Drake answered affirmatively. "What is the release date for this video?" Mr. Drake: July 4th, 2012. Drake answered, looking directly at Judge Moore. Judge Moore interrupted, "I need to meet with the lawyers and parties in my office right now." When we entered the courtroom, the judge took off his robe and sat down thoughtfully. Finally he spoke. "Miss McAfee, your client, Mrs. Bristol, appears to have committed perjury. I may be required to bring this to the attention of the district attorney. Of course, comment on it. If I write an opinion, I'm going to adjourn the trial for 24 hours. I suggest that you negotiate a settlement." During this time, Olivia looked down at the floor and Amanda McAfee looked shocked but resigned. "If you don't do this, you won't like what happens next." Moore continued, "Unless someone has a very compelling reason to present additional evidence, I rule that the testimony in this case is sealed. I will also file a motion to have the record sealed." By 4 that day, Olivia had written me a check for $50,000 plus interest, paid all of Tom's fees and disbursements, and signed a document agreeing to the divorce and giving me 60 of our assets rather than the 50 specified in the prenuptial agreement. That extra 10 was just my little bonus. In Zenny, we settled the case with prejudice, promised not to bring perjury to the attention of. The Dawn filed a joint petition for dissolution of marriage due to irreconcilable differences and sealed the record. That same day, Judge Moore excitedly approved the settlement, granted the divorce petition, and sealed the record. Went on, a few others from his office, Daniel Drake and, surprisingly, Emily Watkins and I went out to dinner to celebrate that evening. I whispered a question to Tom. Why was Mo so insistent that this case be completed and the protocol sealed? "Of course, I don't really know anything about this." Tom grinned. "Otherwise, as a judicial officer, I would have to file a motion to remove Moore and report it to the Ethics Commission. However, I'm willing to bet he had a personal interest in the matter." Tom said, his grin now turning truly devilish. After thinking for a few seconds, I decided that I didn't need to ask any further questions. For months later, I read that Judge Matt Moore and his wife, Elizabeth Moore, had been granted divorce due to irreconcilable differences. The details weren't made public, but I noticed that while driving around town, Judge Moore was now driving a 5-year-old Ford, whereas when I met him at a July 4th party in 2012, he was driving a new Mercedes. If you enjoy this kind of family revelation, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more plots.